The building was rickety, and knowledgeable patrons brought their own umbrellas to avoid getting wet. The roof leaked, and the wooden building saved in the wind. You may be astonished what it is. By seeing the thumbnail, you'd have seen that it's Introduction to Australian Theatre. You all know Australia is such an developed country. Yes, this is the condition of Australian theatre in the beginning. All my dears, welcome to yet another interesting and informative session of Quest for Literature. Today we are going to see the history of Australian theatre as well as the introduction to Kullark by Jack Davis. Australian theatre has a long and distinguished history. It is a history which was influenced by two great Western powers, the United States and Britain. The influence of the British tradition on Australian theatre could not be underestimated. British-born entrepreneurs were the fathers of Australian theatre. Despite the shadow of the two great powers, Australian theatre had its own peculiar characteristics. It grew to be a unique institution for a unique land. Australian theatre began a year after the establishment of Sydney as a penal colony in 1788. In 1789, a play was performed to celebrate the birthday of King George of England. The play was called The Recruiting Officer and was presented by a cast of convicts. It concerned the recruitment of men for the army in a small town and was a comedy. It was performed in bleak surroundings in a convict's hut and observed by an audience of around 60. Most of the audience were officers of the garrison. The governor also attended. Whether convicts should be permitted to participate in or observe theatrical entertainment was a matter for debate in the early years of the colony. First, the purpose of a penal colony was punishment. Theatre was designed for pleasure. Pleasure was not appropriated for those undergoing punishment and could corrupt the convicts. Secondly, theatre by itself very nature caused disorder. It was associated with indolence, wantonness, and rioting. This was particularly the case when the audience was convicts, has a predisposition towards their trades. Robert Sidaway, a baker, opened a theatre in Belrow in 1796 at Sydney. Entry was gained by paying either a shilling or an equivalent in flour, meat, or spirit. Unfortunately, the audience watched such edified entertainment as the revenge. Less respectable citizens could rob their unattempted residence. In 1798, the continual theft from the patrons in terms of burglary and pickpocketing led to the closure of theatre. In 1828, another attempt at establishing a Sydney theatre was attempted. A Sydney merchant applied for a theatre license from Governor Darling in that year, but he refused. This year, the governor allowed him to hold concerts and balls at his royal hotel. Levy tried for a theatrical license again in 1832 and applied to the new governor. Brough was more liberal than his predecessor. Levy was granted a license and in 1833 opened the Royal Theatre in Sydney. Levy almost bankrupted himself in the process. In 1838, a man called Joseph Walt opened Royal Victoria Theatre in Pitt Street. Theatre in Sydney was to be called to date from the establishment of these two theatres. In 1850s, there was an increase in the amount of Shakespeare and opera being performed. The gold rush of 1850s also led to an increase in popular theatre production. In 1870s and 1880s, theatre was growing in popularity in both Sydney and Melbourne. A wide variety of productions were being performed in both cities. 1910, theatre in Australia was still being influenced by Victorian ideas of what was moral and appropriate. The theatre experience was more formal than it has been previously. The entertainment more family oriented. The theatre managers has changed the show to appeal to a wider and more diverse audience. Now let us see the significance of the play Kullark by Jake Davis. Play has two different plots interwoven with one another. The first plot depicts the present life of native people Alec, and the next deal with past history of colonization. I hope you all are very eager to know the summary of this particular drama Kullark, isn't it? I am planning it to be covered in 2 sessions. Okay, the upcoming videos will be the summary of the drama Kullark. So stay tuned to Quest for Literature, and if you are not yet subscribed to my channel, do subscribe as well as click on the bell icon so that you will be notified whenever I upload a new video. And don't forget to give your valuable suggestions in the comment section below.